Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another Up the Dale podcast. And this time we can finally report cricket is here. We are going to talk about a number of things about the club and about the Palace Shield and cricket in general, because we are now starting. So, first of all, welcome Dave, joining me again.
Yeah, evening Neil. It is indeed. It's rather nice to say cricket is back, and we've indeed, as we'll come on to, we've had already one game, and we have games to come at the weekend. It's actually lovely to be in that position, and it feels like summer's finally here.
Absolutely, pal. Yeah, he's actually got something to look forward to. So first of all, we're going to talk about, as Dave said, we've already played one warm-up game. So we want to talk about how the season's going to look for us. We're going to review that warm-up game, and we're going to have a look at what we can do moving forward in terms of the matches coming up. So first of all, we'll kick things off with how things are going to look for this summer for us. We got the say-so of cricket from the ECB, and then shortly afterwards from our league, the Palace Shield, we got a revised format for this season. So basically there are 4 levels, ability levels, that have been created. In those 4 ability levels, geographic groups have been created of clubs. So our first team is at level 3 and is in a group of 6. Our second team is at level 4 and is in a group of 5. And our third team, who are now going to have to play on Sundays, are in a special group of their own. So basically what there's going to be is 2 mini group stages and then into playoffs and a final. So we've discussed this, Dave, and I think it's a really useful format. The league and other leagues who we've noticed are doing very similar formats, I think have done a good job in putting this together. And the rules are based on our cup competition, so 40 overs with a 8 over restriction for bowlers. A few new things like fielding circles and free hits, but it's all fun. So I think it'll be a good format, Dave.
Yeah, I have to say it's been very good that the league have been keeping us up to date at regular intervals with, in previous months, the prospects of any play this season, and then as all the signs have been, we will get some play this year, how they foresaw any cricket to be played. And then, when we actually got the rules and regulations of how we were going to play this mini season, I thought it was really creative, and it was, sort of in a nutshell, a group stage to get in, a group stage to have then some knockout matches. I think it's quite ingenious, really, and just, provides that balance between clubs having, a reasonable number of games to play, so like a round robin stage, but then also there's the competitive elements of it and of having knockout cricket. I think it's a great little compromise between all those things that have to go into the mix. And as you say, the slight quirks for sort of non-cup competitions of fielding circles and things like that, I'm sure it'll give ground staff around the Palace Shield something else to think about on a Saturday morning. But I think it'll work well. And as we've said on these podcasts before, it will be just great to have any cricket this year. I don't think we can be particularly picky or choosy about how things go about. I think it's just great that we're actually going to be able to get out onto the field with 11 versus 11, play pretty much proper cricket in inverted commas, and to do so in competitive matches rather than just a handful of friendlies before finishing in September. I think it's really encouraging.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And as I said, we mused that this format would be what we were going to, and we were, as you said in previous podcasts, we've actually looked forward to this type of format. So yeah, hopefully it's as good as what we think it's going to be. Just off the back of that, we then moved into, obviously a lot of procedures were put into place by both the ECB and the government and the league. So we felt it best to organise a friendly inter-club match rather than a friendly against another team. Just so everybody got as much access to cricket as possible, and in a way, realistically, to test those procedures. So some of the procedures that we've had to go by is obviously informing club members of arriving changed. There's no changing rooms, obviously no tea, so everybody's got to bring their own tea. Car parking for us isn't really an issue, and it's something that we've discussed in terms of opposition clubs coming to us. Our car park is very, very big, very close to the ground. So access and access to your kit being left in a car, for example, really isn't a problem, and so we're quite lucky from that point of view. But things like a hand sanitisation point at the side of the scoreboard, we only unfortunately have access now to one toilet because of the needing the ability to keep it clean on a regular interval. So things like that were all needed to be tested, and we felt that this interclub friendly was a good way of testing that. One of the other issues, Dave, which you knew well because you went and helped out with it, was preparation of the ground, and that had to be. Whilst Mick has done an absolutely glorious job, as you can see on the image behind me. Hopefully, if my image is held for the majority of this podcast, and as you can see behind Dave, that the ground has been absolutely superb during lockdown, and Mick's done a marvellous job. But then to actually prepare a pitch when actually the weather deteriorated when we said we were going to get cricket in a short period of time was quite difficult. And as I say, you went down and worked on the ground, and it was a quick turnaround, wasn't it?
Yeah, just on that ground preparation point, it was typical, of course, wasn't it, when we got the green light to start the training sessions, that the first two we had organised were rained off because of just the amount of bad weather that we've had recently. It was always going to happen after the glorious May and June that we had. But yeah, it's been really good. The ground has been in, I can't remember it being in better condition, whether that's just coincidence or because we haven't been playing on it, but it has been in just such a good condition this year, and Mick and his ground staff, get all the credit possible really for keeping it in such a great condition for not only the cricketers, but obviously other people in the area taking their exercise in the months that have passed. And yeah, certainly it's been great. It's been great for me to help out for a change, getting well acquainted with the outfield mower and going round and round in circles, literally, for a change. Yeah, it's been great to get involved and with that side of things. And yeah, the interclub friendly, as you say, it was good on both sides of the coin, if you will. We were able to get as many players as possible in the club, a little bit of game time, because obviously that has been very much at a premium, if not impossible, since everybody was allowed to start playing. Weekends are obviously going to be the only time really that you're able to play. And then also, as you say, a sort of a trial run with all the requirements for sanitisation and distancing and things like that. Having heard from people what it was like, obviously I wasn't there myself on Saturday. It certainly won't feel quite as social a game, I think. Obviously, with the no changing rooms, people having to sit apart, and then obviously there's not the possibility of going for a post-match beverage and analysis afterwards. But it'll still be fun. You'll still be able to have a laugh and a walk around the field with people, as we normally do. So I think for the majority of the match, I don't think, or I can't foresee there being that radically different from how we normally play. It'll be just those little things that everybody just needs to remember to do. Every 6 overs, make sure you've got your hand sanitizer and things like that.
Yeah, as I say, it was just a case for us of making sure that we had all our ducks in a row. And obviously, this was an ideal way of doing it. So, without further ado, we'll move on to point 2 of our podcast today, which is the review of that interclub match, because it threw
the captain's
together
11 against the chairman's 11.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so it did throw together. Well, actually, obviously, you say the chairman's 11. I wasn't captain on the day, even though I filled in at the last minute. So it was Scott Newton's 11, first team skipper, versus Pete Ingham, club leg end, and Pete's helping out take the third team this year, whilst Mick Berry calm. So those two guys put two relatively equally matched teams together, mix of first, second, and thirds, and we tried to match up first 11 bowlers with first 11 batters in terms of the actual game structure. And it turned out to be just a very useful sort of test. We got everybody together before the game, talked through all the new procedures so everybody understood what was going on. Just everybody bought into it. That was great. The weather held off, thankfully. And yeah, it was a really useful situation. One of the interesting things, we'll get the sort of boring stuff out of the way first, but sort of the hand sanitisation breaks that we had to do every 6 overs. I guess that was probably the most most obvious part of some of the new regulations, really,
Mm.
and probably the thing that was most noticeable from it being a normal game. Probably that
Yeah.
and the fact, as you said, you can't celebrate. So it is a little bit less social. It's a little bit
Yeah.
more distanced, obviously.
And the thing with the hand sanitization thing, I guess, just from the way I was thinking about it was, how much is enough in terms of cleaning the ball and cleaning your hands, and how long are we talking for? Spending the whole minute cleaning the ball continuously, or just a quick?
It's difficult, and I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, I was Pete. It's the fielding captain's responsibility to clean the ball, so Pete was doing that.
Yeah.
Everybody else pretty promptly got to the side of the field, either got their own sanitizer or those that unfortunately still hadn't bought one in readiness for next week. We had 2 bottles, big bottles of hand sanitizer there that people could use at the sanitisation station, and they just got that done. So Dom was wicket keeping, so I wiped Dom's gloves down with an anti-bac wipe as Pete was wiping the ball down. It was, yeah, I mean that we did what we felt was necessary, shall we say? So again, as we go to other grounds, we might learn different ways of doing things, or are we doing it right, or are they doing it right? And it'll all be a learning process. But that, as I say, that inter-club match was ideal for doing that, and
Definitely.
as I say, it all passed off reasonably well. So getting on to the match itself, first team captain Scott Newton lost the toss. Pete won the toss and inserted Scott's team, and Scott actually opened the batting with young Matt Simmons, who I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about Matt shortly when we're talking about the matches coming up this Saturday. Um, it's got to be said, we'll look at the overall first innings. We decided that we were going to bowl the whole 40 overs regardless of wickets. So we played 12 aside was the first thing to mention. So if all the wickets fell, then we just rotated back around and new batsmen came in again until we completed the 40 overs. So that was what it was. So we did that, and as I say, I think Scott's team would probably admit that they didn't bat very well, in all honesty. Um, Top scorer, if you add both his scores together, was Gareth Winstanley, first team all rounder, who got 21. So Scott's team made 111 off their 40 overs. Elements of bad batting, or let's say out of practice batting, I think might be the best way to describe it.
Which is
Um,
fair enough.
well, the other thing we've got to mention is obviously the pitch, and we said it was maybe a little bit underprepared. And a lot of the comments in the first innings was that it was very much like a very early season wicket, funnily enough, almost
Mm.
like an April wicket. So ironic, really, when you think about it, that it was coming up to the first match of the season, but we're not actually in April.
Mm.
So it was a little bit of a disappointing performance from Scott's team. There's some half decent batters in there, and yeah, everybody seemed to want to a little bit of cross the line shots, but not probably as much application as maybe some of them could have done. So it was a little bit disappointing. But I think with hindsight, look at the bowling that Pete's team had. So you had first team opening bowlers Matt Eastham and Jake Bolton opening up, followed by second team opening bowlers, if you like, Ikram and Imran. So
Yeah,
it was
that's not a bad four,
it's not a
really,
bad
is it?
four to start off with. Yeah, I think with hindsight, maybe we could have passed one of those two sort of first change bowlers over to Scott's team. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing. We thought we had a balanced team, but unfortunately, possibly didn't turn out like that. Imran in particular bowled superbly, took 4 for 15, and got Gareth in Gareth's first spell. Dave, you know full well being in the second team with Imran how his cutter works quite
Yeah,
well.
goes round
It
corners.
goes round corners as Imran's cutter, and he got Gareth with one that must have come in about 2 foot,
Yeah.
as we well know, normally standing at slip watching it.
Yeah.
So yeah, Imran, bowled really well, 4 for 15. There was good performance from Jake Bolton, not played for 5 years. His first ball was a beamer at Scott, um, but after that settled down really well, 2 for 18 off 6, and really looked like he was hitting the marks well. So for somebody who hadn't played a game in 5 years, really good prospects from Jake. Matty Easton bowled well. So yeah, in the batting side of things, one thing I will note, and again probably we'll cover when we're talking about the preview of the coming matches. There was a first match in Walterdale colours for Abdullah Kadver, who joined us from Whittle, and also a potential new player called Hamza Mahmood, who again we'll come on to in the second innings because Hamza batted low down and he told us he was a bowler, so it would be interesting to see how he performed. So those were the two. Oh, and also, sorry, the returning Carl Johnson, who hasn't played probably since I think his early 20s, and he's significantly older than that now. Has a history with the club as a useful swing bowler. And it was good to see Carl out there because he really does seem a very enthusiastic cricketer. I think he'll be a good addition to the club. But yeah, good again, bowling wise, good performances from a couple of the juniors. Dom Harvey 2 for 9, and young Evan Benyon, who's joined us from Leyland, got a wicket with a superb catch from his captain Pete Ingham over his head. It was a slight jump from Pete, but I'm not sure how far off the floor he got. But it was a good take.
Rolling back the years.
Oh, rolls back the years, certainly does. And Elliot Tailforth, who joined us from Longridge, also got in on the action and got a wicket as well. So just as we touched on, useful all round, good contributions from everybody. Was there anything you noticed from that first innings, Dave, that stood out to you? That you like to see?
Yeah, I mean, well, one thing that stuck out for me was obviously, in some ways, I almost expect Imran to get 4 wickets in innings. But the thing I was really pleased about was Matt Eastham getting 3 wickets. I know he spent a lot of time in the gym over recent months, and both of us go to the same gym, and I've seen him in there a couple of times. And he's worked really hard on his fitness, and he's certainly come back incredibly strong, as we saw in Winter Nets, and he's put on pace again from previous years. And he just looks like somebody who's just really keen and really enthusiastically looking forward to cricket this year, which is just great to see. And I'm really pleased that he's in this friendly. He's just hit the ground running and found his line and his length pretty much from the off. And I hope he takes it into next week because it could be a really good season for him if he's available for the majority of it, especially given that there's no festivals for him to go to this year. It could be a really good summer for him, what's left of it. Yeah,
the one thing I've noticed, and both from Winternet's point of view and on Saturday with Matt, is he's now got this an almost like renewed, for somebody who is, I don't know how old Matt is, early 20s, suddenly found this, he's really looking to learn now. He was trying, whether my brains are worth picking or not, I don't know, but he was talking to me about his run-up and how he could potentially get a little bit more pace out of his run-up, and it's something we talked about over the winter. And again, he was having a word with me when he opened on Saturday, and yeah, there seems to be, as you say, this real enthusiasm from him and this enthusiasm to really push his game on, which I've not seen from Matt probably for a good few years now, in all honesty. He was always improving, and we've discussed about Matt in previous episodes, but yeah, a real enthusiasm to learn and really push himself on this season. So yeah, absolutely couldn't agree more with that. As I say, from a batting point of view, we saw the continuation of, as I say, Abdullah's joined us this year, and in Winter Nets we knew he could hit a big ball.
Oh yeah.
We knew he likes to hit out, and we saw more of that on Saturday in his, albeit a couple of short innings. One of them was he got a 12 very quickly, and there was some clean hitting in there as well. So. One thing I would like to point out, I said Gareth was top scorer. His good mate Naz, who we had on the podcast the other week,
yes.
Naz talked himself into having a little bowl at the end of the innings, and I've got to say Gareth hit one of the biggest sixes off Naz that I've seen in a long while, straight into the trees at the top end. It looked like it was going over the fence at one point. I think it hit the fence and bounced back. So it appeared as though it hadn't have gone as far as it would have. If it hadn't have hit the fence, it would have gone a lot further. So Naz had got a wicket, I think, at that point. I think he got Scott out, actually. And then Gareth came in and I think shut Naz up a bit with that one. It was a mighty blow.
Yeah, I'm sure knowing Gareth, he'll be getting full value out of that story for many years to come.
Especially with Naz. If he'd have been off anybody else, that's fair enough. But off his good mate, I'm sure that'll be something they'll argue about for many months to come now.
Definitely. Was it a 6 or was it a 12?
Well, to be fair, as I say, for Gareth, who is not a big guy, he's very much a stroke player, is Gareth. It travelled a long way, so that old Newbury he found the middle in it anyway. I'll give him that much. So yeah, 111 off 40 overs, and I think despite, I've got to say they definitely got the worst of the wicket as well. It did dry up considerably for the second half as the weather was better as the afternoon went on. So I think all the benefits went in terms of Pete's team batting second. And I've got to say, because I went out there and batted myself, it did feel a bit easier. But then I think we'd seen how the opposition team or Scott's team battered and knew that realistically we had to be a little bit more controlled in our batting, shall we say. So in the reply, Naz opened up, first team opener, and Ikram Plejwala, who is our second team, who's been pushing to open the batting himself in the seconds. Both those two guys opened up with Ryan Wells, first team, very useful all-rounder, and Aitzaz Waliyat, who sort of straddles the first and the second team, very useful swing bowler. And generally bowled pretty well. Ryan not with much reward, to be fair. Aitzaz bowled well, and Aitzaz eventually got Ikram fairly early on. Naz and unfortunately Jake Bolton, who opened the bowling, had to get off early, so we promoted Jake up the order to number 3. And Naz and Jake really did put a really good partnership on. Naz being his usual grinding it out self, and Jake, as we know, and a lot of people there hadn't really seen Jake play much because, as I say, he's had 5 years off. So those of us that know that Jake, if he plays straight, hits it very long, very straight. It's when he plays across the line that he gets into trouble. Jake hit one of the biggest sixes that I've seen in a long time. It hit the top of one of the houses at the bottom end on Higher Walton Road, and it just clipped the top. So it was going onto the road, and it was a mighty six. And and he's not stopped talking about it since. And I think he's told his brother Sam numerous times now. Anyway, but yeah, cracking shot. And Jake got 23 and in good time as well. So it goes to show what a clean hitter he is of the ball when he gets going. So that was really good. It was good to see Jake getting a hit. I'm not sure he'll be batting that high up for the first team, but
I'm sure he'll be fighting his corner.
I'm sure that will give him cause to speak to Scott. Absolutely, yeah. So, but after that we had veteran Bob Nuttall, who's come back to the club this year. Unfortunately, got out fairly quickly, caught and bowled. Young Dom Harvey, second team, bits and pieces, bowler, batter, wicket keeper, was looking pretty good. Unfortunately, fell, and this is where we move over to it. Hamza Mahmood, the new guy who came down, good friend of Aitzaz, had told us he was mostly a medium pace bowler. I think he was doing himself a bit of an injustice, Dave, because this guy is a very useful bowler. Now, unfortunately, he might be a little bit restricted by availability, he tells me, but I think he's going to have a game on Sunday. But his line was, I mean, I went out there and faced him after Dom got out, and he was exemplary. Everything within probably about 2 or 3 inches of off stump, making you play every ball at a decent pace, not express, but not medium dibbly dobbly either. And yeah, everybody was speaking afterwards. May well be the big find if we can get him playing regularly. Maybe the big find of that game. So, as you know, getting people of a good quality to come down to any club, but particularly ourselves, has been difficult in the past. Somebody like this walking in absolutely might be useful for us.
Yeah, well, sounds very encouraging. But obviously, the curse of amateur sport is the availability of your members.
Absolutely.
And whether you can get them down week in, week out with jobs, family life, all sorts of things going on. It's trying to get that regularity out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I just hope that we can find some way around it, because whatever team he plays in, he absolutely will be a useful asset. So yeah, look good. Then myself, I did my usual grind it out. I got a couple of streaky 4s off a couple of full tossers and managed to hit one straight for 4, which is very strange for me, to be quite frank. Might have mistimed it. So I got 24. Imran came and went pretty quickly, and Pete Ingham got a little 10 not out as me and Pete retired just to give Matt Eastham and Elliott a go at the end. And so it was just a really steady innings compared to, I guess, the first innings, where we had the benefit of looking at the conditions and looking at how it should be played. We were really lucky that we won the toss, I guess, from that point of view. Bowling wise, again, Abdullah Kadver on his debut, 2 for 7, bowled really tidily. good couple of wickets. Carl Johnson took his time getting into it, but looked to bowl again, good useful line on off stump, so that was good. As I say, Hamza 1 for 7 off 5 overs. That showed you what a good testing line and lengthy ball.
Really good.
Bobby only went for 1 off 3 overs. Awkward right arm round that really took people up. So yeah, some good contributions all round. Good to see young Matt Berry getting some overs under his belt, which I'm sure will help him moving into the third team matches. And the comment was made, Matt's action is looking better and better every time we see him play now, and he's really getting a lovely action to him. And I'm sure the more games he gets under his belt and the more overs he gets under his belt, that'll only help him come on. So yeah, no, really good. Young Matt Simmons got a ball at the end. I've got to say I hate leg spin, so Matt was bowling to me, and I really sometimes struggle in picking my scoring points off leg spin. So it was a little tricky, to say the least. And one of the other nice little things to see is Bob Simmons, Matt's dad, was doing some keeping in the second half of that innings and did really, really well. And I know Bob had said he wanted to do some keeping in the third 11 this year, and really impressed. Really, really did the hard graft, threw himself around. So yeah, Bob impressed a lot of people. So it was all in all, we my team batting second ended up with 140, and I think on that wicket that would be a competitive total, generally speaking. So yeah, it was a useful run out, a useful experiment. The procedures were well received. All in all, just a good thing to kick off, really, Dave.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like we've ticked both of the boxes that we wanted. A good run through of all the guidelines and rules, to be compliant with all the requirements for sanitisation and hygiene, and then also to get people some practicing before we kick off this coming weekend. Sounds like successful on both counts.
Absolutely. And one final thing I will touch on is, which was a bit of a surprise to us, we had a little visit from a press photographer who was on his way up to Preston North End and heard that we were playing a friendly match, and dropped in and asked, actually, could he take some photos of the new procedures and how we were adjusting, getting back into cricket. And we've seen some of his photos on. It was from the actual press association, so a pretty high level photographer, this guy. And we've seen some of the photos he's taken on the press association website. He's hopefully going to sort us out with some of them. There's some really cracking photos in there, so it'd be nice to see them. But yeah, he was really keen to see how we were organising things in starting back. So that was a nice little extra. So that was good. So we're going to now move on to the last part of the podcast, which is something that we initially set the video podcast up to do, which was to review and preview matches at Wantley Dale. So into part 3 we go, and preview of the weekend's matches. So we'll start off at the top, which is the first 11, who are playing Chorley Thirds at home in what would have been actually a Division 3 match. They were both going to be in Division 3 next year. And Chorley Thirds are a team that are well known to me and you, Dave, because they got promotion out of Division 4 that our second team were in last year, albeit that we beat them twice.
Yes,
which is always nice.
We do know them very well. So, slightly frustrating, wasn't it? As we discussed in, I think it was one of the first podcasts, how we narrowly missed out on promotion ourselves, but yet did the double over the league winners. Slightly frustrating, but yeah, we know about them. We know they're a tough team. Plenty of good youngsters, as all Northern League sides have, to be honest. And although we have what we think is a good team out ourselves, they'll have to be, they'll have to play well to beat, what is always a competitive and quality Chorley side.
Absolutely, and I think you've touched on something there in terms of, we'll just quickly talk about the opposition first. Chorley do have exactly that good mix of hardened veterans, if you like, experienced people like Mark Richardson, who I believe isn't captaining this year, or maybe sharing the captaincy with a younger guy, Ollie Smith, who I think played against us in that last match of last season. Got the likes of people like Ross Deming, and so some real hardened campaigners there, mixed with, I know quite a few of the young Chorley guys from playing against my kids or friends with my kids, and some really useful young cricketers there. So it will be a tough test for them. But as you said, we have been really confident about the first team coming into this season. Again, for ourselves, good mix of experience, some younger players coming in, some new players coming in. So a lot of hope. So we'll just quickly go through these teams that we're going to read out now are, at the time of filming, what we think they're going to be. They're obviously, as with a lot of club cricket, subject to change before the weekend. But these are somewhere close to where we think they're going to be. So the first team, obviously Scott, his first match as captain, and wicket keeper, and Harry Bates as his vice captain. Harry actually bowled really well as well with his leg spin in the inter-club match. So Harry's looking in really good form. You've got the old stages of Naz and Gareth, as we've discussed about in the inter-club match. Solid guys. Naz looking really good with his batting from the weekend. Looks like he's there to really make some runs this year. Gareth with his off spin. Even got Jake out on Saturday with what Jake called a wrongun. I've never actually seen Gareth bowl a wrongun in my life, but whether
I think he also used the word unplayable.
Unplayable, absolutely. Jake was absolutely baffled by it, but yeah. We've got debuts in the team for Imran Hussain, who's joined us from Longridge. Looks a real classy batsman. Loves a cover drive. Not sure how many cover drives he'll be able to get away on a Dale pitch, considering the weather we've been having, but I'm sure he'll give it a go. And then also a debut again for Abdullah Kadver, who, as I say, we mentioned. Abdullah really impressed with his hitting, and I think Scott likes the sound of that because, as I say, we've not really got any hitters as such. We've got a lot of all-rounders who play good cricket. Never really had many hitters recently. I think Abdullah offers something different from that point of view. I think that's why Scott's thinking of bringing him in. And one big thing that we want to touch on, we talked about Matt Simmons opening the batting for Scott's team. And Matt's going to make, I don't think it is his debut for the first team, but I know Scott has been very keen to get Matt involved. Matt, as we've known over the last few years, is technically a very, very good player. Plays very straight, gets in line, plays technically very good. And I think what Scott's thinking is that he wants to really blood Matt and see how this curtailed season helps bring Matt in with that first team environment. I think it's a really Scott's been really canny at how he's put that team together and also introducing Matt. So I think it'll be it's a good way of introducing Matt into that environment moving forward.
Yeah, I would totally agree because it's a win-win situation. You know, he gets 6, 7, 8, however many games they end up playing this season. It's not counting towards promotion or relegation. There isn't that, you know, that sort of stress, if you will, of pressure cricket as such. Obviously, it's, as we said, it is still competitive, but it isn't for moving up or down a league. And it provides an ideal opportunity for him to get to grips with and really experience week in, week out for a bit of a period of time what it's like to play in that higher division, obviously, compared to when he's been playing in the second team or in what was the Sunday team. You know, that higher level, slightly quicker bowlers, more technically capable batsmen, better fielders. You know, he'll experience that all week in, week out, and I think it'll be a great experience for him. I hope he, as you say, he's technically correct, and I think, you know, I really hope he thrives in it.
Absolutely. The one thing that we touched on Saturday, I was fielding next to Matt Easton, and looking at this team, it's got bowling massively throughout it. That's not to say it's not got batting in it, has. But you look at the bowling, I mean, Jake Bolton, Matt Easton and Ryan Wells is a fearsome.
That's a good three. Yeah.
There is pure pace in those three bowlers. You know, there's probably some bowlers in a lot higher levels that haven't got that amount of pace from, you know, three frontline bowlers. Back that up with Gareth, Abdullah and Harry, two off spinners and Harry with his leg spin. And you've even got likes of Sam Bolton, who can also turn his arm over as a little bit of medium pace as well. Absolutely. So it's a pretty fearsome bowling lineup, and I think if there can be some runs created by the batters, I see no reason why that first team cannot be bowling teams out on a regular basis. So
I would agree. It looks a really strong bowling lineup this year.
Absolutely. So yeah, tough test. We're not going to deny that Chorley will put up a tough test. We know the type of team they can turn out, and as with every club this year, I'm sure there's lots of people pushing for a game of cricket. So, availability shouldn't be a problem for most clubs. So I would think Chorley will have a fairly strong third team out. So it'll be interesting to see just how the two teams match up. So good luck to
Yeah.
Scott in his first game as first team skipper.
Yeah, I hope he does really well.
Let's see how the first go on. We'll quickly move on to the seconds. Our team, Dave. So we know what's going on here. We have been drawn first match away at BAC Preston, their second team. Their second team are, I believe, 2 divisions below us, Division 6, and we're Division 4. However, what we can't do is take it for granted. Absolutely cannot take it for granted. And I know there was an influx of players into BAC last year after a couple of seasons of struggling for players. So as it stands at this moment in time, we've got to go into that with a mindset of this is a new game and a new environment. So we're going to go in and we've got a strong side out, and it's really got to be focus on what we're doing here. And what I've got to say is we've been quite lucky. We've talked about the strength of that first team. We've been beneficial of that a little bit. I'm looking at the team now, and we've actually got, with the strength of the bowling in that first team, we've managed to get Aitzaz, who bowled really well on Saturday, and we know has bowled really well in the past when he has been available and dropped down from the first team. So we've got Aitzaz available to us. So again, we're talking about the strength and depth of bowling in that first team. I look at this second team, and again, it's scary the amount of bowling that we've got. Yeah. Talk about opening bowlers of Aitzaz, Imran, Ikram in there as well, Beth Harvey to back that up with some left arm swing, and then we've got yourself as leg spin, Elliot, who's come in this year with his off spin, Saheed Fahalawala with his whatever you call it, his little away swingers.
Darts.
Darts indeed. But again, we saw last year, very, very effective. So, and also on Saturday, Dom Harvey, if he's not wicket keeping, bowled really well, and for a 14-year-old with decent pace as well. So we've got a plethora of options again in the bowling department.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And the good thing is, I think there's a huge variety in there as well, which is something possibly we've not had previously. We've always had a decent seam bowling and normally backed up with yourself for a bit of spin, but we've got off spin, leg spin, swing, seam. We've got a bit of everything in there this season.
It's a real variety, and hopefully, because we don't know what the pitches will be like in this shortened spell, obviously groundsmen will have had limited time to prepare wickets. I don't foresee myself getting too much of a bowl. I don't think that's probably a surprise to anyone or letting any secrets out. I don't think it will be a leg spinner's wicket on Saturday. But hopefully that means that other people, as you say, our seam and swing options will come to the party and they'll find something which is ideal for their type of bowling.
From a batting point of view, we've actually lost our 2 openers. Anis Fahalawala, unfortunately, isn't available due to work constraints, and same for Paul Williams, who formed a formidable opening partnership for us last year. And it's a shame because those 2 guys were very, very sound, genuine opening batters. And finding genuine opening batters can be quite tricky, so we were lucky from that extent. However, we have got decent batters who can play at the top of the order. As we mentioned in the inter-club match, Ikram Palejwala has thrown his hat into the ring and did it last year. With success at one point, I think getting 60 odd against Longridge. And we've got, at the top of the order, Iqbal Ahmed, the evergreen Iqbal Ahmed, who normally loves to bat at 3. So I'm sure Iqbal will get some runs. Myself, if I can actually find some form. And Dom, obviously, has looked really good at winter nets. Technically looking very good. And we'll just need to convert that into some summer form. So, there is batting all the way down. We always say there is batting all the way down the order. Nobody there is a bunny and can't hold a bat. Everybody can score some runs. And as our president Gavin always says, if everybody got 15 runs, you'd have a decent total on the board.
He's not wrong. He's very rarely wrong, is our Gav.
Very rare, and I wouldn't like to tell Gavin he is wrong. But yeah, looking at that team again, plenty of people who can contribute with the bat. And pretty similar to the first. If the batters perform, I think we've got the bowling to really do some damage. So as you say, let's see what the pitch brings. Normally a BSE wicket is a fairly decent wicket.
Yeah, definitely.
But as you
it's
say,
a nice ground to play at. And it's
well,
one of those where you'll be able to socially distance quite easily. It is massive.
It is a fairly big field, admittedly, yeah. So whether they'll rope it off or not, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, we'll wait and see. We've no idea what pitches are going to be like. As Dave says, teams have had limited time, so we can't say that it's going to be an absolute road. At the same time, I very much doubt a BAC wicket will be a bad wicket. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, looking forward to it. BAC is always a nice day out down by the riverside. So we'll see how that goes. We'll lastly move on to our third 11, who were going to be a Saturday team this year, but unfortunately, due to ground restrictions, have had to move to Sundays, as has a lot of third and fourth teams in the league, which has meant that the third team are playing in a group of 8. So they will have 7 matches straight off the bounce. So I don't think it's 2 group stages for the third team, just one big group stage. And ostensibly, this is a group of players that primarily played Sundays previously. We're transferring to Saturdays, as we've discussed on many occasions, to get a more reasonable level of cricket. And the level of cricket they're going to get is exactly the same as what they would have done playing in Division 6. The majority of teams are Division 5 or Division 6 teams that they would have been playing against. So there really is no difference except for they having to revert to playing on Sundays again. So the thirds are kicking off against Leyland Force, who admittedly would have been in our division, in Division 4. But I know the Leyland Force team very, very well. And I still think it's a reasonable match for the level that the third team will be playing at. So as it stands at the moment, Pete Ingham, as we've mentioned, will be captaining that side. And as it stands at the moment, and this is, as I say, subject to change, Pete Ingham, Aaron Ayton and Owen Ayton, who unfortunately aren't available on the Saturday but are available on the Sunday, so we're giving them some cricket. Long Tom Gregson, Carl Johnson, as I say, come back to the club after many years away. Dave Harrison, Bob Nuttall potentially, again, club legend, played on Saturday, unfortunately hurt his foot. So Bob's waiting to see whether he's going to be fit or not. Young Matt Berry, as we've discussed before, very useful junior bowler. Hamza Mahmood, new to the club, very useful bowler. Young Evan Benyon, which will be an interesting one for Evan because he plays his junior cricket at Leyland. He's going to be playing against their senior side. And at this moment in time, we're waiting on one other, and we think that's probably going to be Bob Simmons, so who, as I say, should be wicket keeping. So that probably is going to be subject to change. That team a little bit, maybe 1 or 2 changes there. As I say, Bob, we don't think will be fit. So Bob Nuttall, should I say? So it may be that somebody like Matt Simmons joins his dad, and they play together on the Sunday for more exposure for Matt. But I think overall, I think out of the 3 teams, it's actually probably the more balanced team in terms of batting and bowling spread. So I think, we've discussed before, Dave, there's some very useful cricketers in that team, and probably people who probably deserve to move up and down the team, or up the team, should I say, as performance suggests. Certainly Aaron has played at a higher level, and he's only playing in the third team because he can't play on a Saturday this week. So yeah, it should be a useful collection of players there.
I think so. I think, as you say, it looks really balanced, and as we were talking about earlier, that nice mix between the experience-wise old heads of Captain Ingham and the 2 Bobs, and then your young players like Matt Berry, Matt Simmons, Evan, Owen, Aaron to a certain extent, although he has played quite a bit of cricket now. But you've got that balance between young and old,
yeah.
And I just think I'm really looking forward to hearing how they get on, because I think it's the most important match of the season for the entire club. Yeah. Getting that third team out there, we've talked about it for over a year now, getting this idea in place, and we didn't think we were going to get it underway this year, and it looks like we are going to. And I just think it's so important for the future of the club, having all these juniors like that you were listing there. It's not just 1 or 2 juniors, as in the old days of Wantedale.
Yeah.
It's multiple junior players getting their chance week in, week out. And I'm just so pleased that it's actually come off. And I think, I'm looking forward to seeing how they all get on, because Pete will give them their chance. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
Pete is all about giving these young lads a go with the bat and a go with the ball. So I can see nothing. It doesn't matter at all about the results, as long as they are getting the money's worth, as you would like to say, Neil. That's the main thing from the third team this year. I hope they really do well. I hope they win all the games. But as long as these young lads are getting blooded into senior cricket and the wise old heads are, leading them and contributing themselves, I see no downsides.
Absolutely, and I think it will be a nice little matchup for them to play Leyland first up.
Mm-hmm.
As I say, I know quite a lot about the Leyland team. Again, my kids playing junior cricket there. I know potentially the makeup of that team, although I don't know exactly who'll be playing. I do believe Pete Boardman will be captaining the side. Pete used to play at a very good level for Penwitham for many years in his youth. Pete is a very, very accomplished batsman. So that will be a difficult task. Pete got 100 last year in one of the Leyland Club.
Great experience for them.
Oh, absolutely. And if Pete Boardman's wicket will be a prize wicket, no doubt. So that will be a tough ask for them, but it gives them exactly as you said, the challenge to do that. And after that, as we discussed with Chorley, club like Leyland have a vast array of juniors to choose from, as well as we do, with a couple of old heads. I'm sure maybe someone like Steve Vardy will be playing for them, who opens the batting. Another grinder. I'm sure Steve won't mind me saying that. Really supportive of junior cricket at Leyland is Steve, and somebody like Pete for us see Steve Vardy for Leyland, and I think whilst Leyland have that multitude of juniors to select from, and we don't, so to speak, I still think the principle's exactly the same, and I know those guys will also push that junior involvement more than anything else. So I think it'll be a really useful matchup first up. I'm hoping to get down on Sunday and watch that and see how they get on. And like you, I'm just really excited to see how this bunch of like you say, experienced heads, younger players, and lads who really I think are probably going to try and make an impact and really push themselves to move up the teams again. I think it'll be a really good addition for the club, and exciting times.
Indeed.
So there we go. Three games coming up this weekend. All of us except
finally here.
It's finally here. We can get on with it. Hopefully the weather is looking good towards the back end of the week, shall we say. It'll all be new for a lot of us in terms of a lot of the different procedures, but I'm sure every club we visit this year will be trying their hardest to make things as easy as possible, but whilst remaining true to the guidance that we've been given. I don't think any club will try and cut corners or put people in positions they don't want to be in. And I think that's the key thing moving forward, that we are getting back out on the field and we are enjoying it again. But at the end of the day, that it's something that we are going to do and try and get back to enjoying the game we love, really, Dave. So fingers crossed it all goes well at the weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for some nice weather and 3 great games of cricket.
Couldn't agree more. So we're going to leave it at that, guys. Thanks very much for joining us again. Hopefully we'll be back next week with a review of 3 matches. And we can discuss some absolutely superb performances on the field. And this is the content that we were hoping to bring you all along. So thanks for joining us again. Hopefully see you next week. Talk about some cricket. Enjoy your cricket this weekend if you are playing cricket. And don't forget to tell us how you went on as well. So from me and Dave, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon.